Are you looking for a way to spice up your fiddle music? Well, if so, you might experiment with adding some ornaments into your tunes. In this video, I'll cover 6 different ornaments that you can add into your Irish fiddle music. If we haven't met, hi, I'm Megan. I'm a violinist and teacher currently based in New Jersey. I've been playing the violin for over 20 years. I have both my bachelor's and master's degrees in violin performance, and I'm a Suzuki trained teacher. Now, I know what you might be thinking, Megan, you're classically trained. How do you know about fiddle and fiddle ornaments? Well, that's a very good point. I do have some experience playing fiddle music. Actually, it's a little known fact that I won a few fiddle competitions when I was younger. And last year I ran a program called Fiddle Favorites, which really forced me to dive into fiddle music and learn all about the style and the ornamentation. So I'm happy to share with you 6 of the easiest and most popular ornaments that you can add into your tunes to bring them to the next level. In this video, I'll be using the tune The Butterfly as an example. Ornament number 1 is called a cut. A cut is essentially a grace note that is either a half step or whole step above the written note, depending on the key signature. So, in this example, the butterfly is in the key of E minor, meaning we have 1 sharp F sharp. The written note is a B. For a cut, in this particular instance, you would play C, B. So it might sound something like this. So you start on the grace note, you start on the cut, and then you play the written note. Here's the first 2 measures of the butterfly without the cut. And now I'm going to add the cut in to the first note of the second measure. Did you hear it? Again, it's going to be a half step or a whole step above the written note depending on the key signature. Since C natural is in this key signature, that is the note that I chose to use for my cut. Ornament number 2 is called a tap. This is essentially the opposite of a cut. So if a cut is a grace note starting on the note above the note that's written, the tap is a grace note starting on the note below the note that's written. So in the same instance, for the note B, the note of the tap would be an A, and you would play A, B. Here's the first 2 measures of the butterfly with a tap on the first note of the second measure. So it definitely sounds different in the cut, but it has the same effect. Ornament number 3 is a roll, specifically a 5-note roll. There are other kinds of rolls. There are 2-note rolls, 3-note rolls, 4-note rolls, but 5-note rolls are the most common. You might know this 5-note roll from The Last of the Mohicans. That was a 5-note roll. So to play the 5-note roll, you start on the written note. Then you play a note above the written note, back to the written note, then the note below, and then the written note. Additionally, it's kind of a convention if you're doing this roll on a first finger, like we're doing here in the butterfly, to instead use your 3rd finger for the second note of the roll. So it won't be technically a note above the note that's written, but 2 notes above the note that's written. The reason for this is that the 3rd finger is just stronger, and because you're playing a lot of notes in one small beat, your fingers have to be very energetic. And so that's why some players choose to use that 3rd finger. So again, for this B, the notes of the 5-note roll would be B. And then it's up to you whether you use C or D. I'm going to use D in this instance. Back to B, open A, and B again. And then you're going to slur them all. That is the 5-note roll. Additionally, when you're lifting your third finger, some players prefer to kind of move it a little bit sideways rather than straight up, again, to make sure that all of the notes sound clear. So here's those first two measures of the butterfly with that 5-note roll at the beginning of the second measure. Might not be such a good fit there because it is a faster, paced tune. Obviously, the last one he is slower, but that is essentially the 5-note roll. The next ornament is the slide. So a slide, I think, is most typically done when you're going from an open string to a first finger. However, it can be used on other fingers as well. And a slide is essentially what it sounds like. You are just sliding into that note. So for instance, in this B, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna place my first finger on a B flat or like a low one and then slide it up to that B. So it'll sound like this. That definitely sounds a lot more Irish. So, like I said, most typically done on that open string, but you definitely can do it on like a third finger or a second finger. Really can be any finger. I probably would avoid fourth finger, but I don't know, that's just me. The fifth ornament is a drone. So you have probably heard others do this in their music, but in a drone, essentially you are just adding in a double stop with an open string. Typically this is the open string below the string that you're playing on. So again, for the example of the B, if I'm playing on the A string, I'm gonna be droning my open D. However, that's not always the case. Sometimes players do drone the upper note. So you can really do either, depending on your preference. So if I were to play the first two measures here with a drone, my drone is going to switch between D and G because I'm switching between A string and D string. I think drones typically work better when you have some slurs so that the drum sound is more consistent, right? That time you could hear every single bow change, right? Because there was no slurs, so the drum was a little bit choppy. But that's not to say it can't be done on separate bows. That's a drone. And finally, we have the burl, which is also called a bowed triplet. So unlike the other ornaments that we've covered so far, this ornament is done with the bow rather than the left hand. Well, I guess the drone was done with the bow as well. I would suggest only using this burl on longer notes because if you don't have enough time, you just simply don't have enough time if it's a short note. And when I say longer notes, I mean like a dotted quarter, half note, whole note, obviously depending on just the general pace of the piece. So for this bowed triplet, what you're gonna do is you're gonna start on a down bow and you're gonna try to use a lot of bow on that first down bow. You're gonna try to get to the tip, and then you're gonna play two little bows here, an up and a down, and then another big bow on the up bow. So big bow down, two little bows, and another big bow. So faster it goes. Really important that you get the bow division right. So the first one has to be long, get to the tip, the second two are small, and then the final one is longer. For this example, I'm gonna go straight to the end of the butterfly because there's no other spot really where you can do it in this tune because it does go rather quick. So I'm gonna play the last two measures and I'm gonna add a burl onto the last note. And that is it. Those are 6 ornaments that you can add into your fiddle music. If you have another ornament that you love and want to share it with me, please leave a comment down below. I also suggest writing these ornaments in, or at least choosing what notes you are going to ornament or use them on beforehand, especially if you are a beginner, because it's highly likely that you're not going to be able to just like think of one on the spot and just automatically put it in. So decide what ornament you're going to use where until you feel a little bit more comfortable with them and are more experienced adding ornaments into your music. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check out Learn Violin Online in the description and subscribe before you go.